I, Ibrahim Traoré, stand before you to say, our enemies will know no rest. I proclaim with fierce determination. With Operation Swift Descent, our paratroopers bring the fight to them, landing fast and fearless to protect our land and our people. Imagine the sun just rising over Bobo Dioulasso. The air is still, laced with the scent of mangoes and brewing coffee. Vendors arrange spices in bright patterns. Children laugh in dusty alleyways on their way to school. But then, silence. The kind of silence that grips before thunder. Eyes turn to the sky. They appear not as birds, but as dots falling in perfect harmony. Parachutes bloom, silent, deliberate, and unrelenting. No gunfire. No chaos. Only precision. This is no foreign invasion. These are our soldiers. And this, right now, is a message. Burkina Faso does not wait. We descend. If this image strikes you, like this video and stay with us. This is only the beginning. On the morning of July 7, 2025, the world paused. Over 500 paratroopers descended from the sky above Bobo Dioulasso in a coordinated, wordless cascade. Operation Swift Descent was not an exercise. It was a revolution in doctrine, a battlefield made airborne. International observers were stunned. What they saw was not chaos, but choreography. Not power for show, but for purpose. No tanks. No delays. Just soldiers falling with conviction. It was the final exam for a new kind of warfare, one born not in Brussels or Washington, but in the red earth of Burkina Faso. This was not just military training. It was the nation saying, we are no longer reactive. We are first to land. They call it SATAP. But here, soldiers call it something else, the furnace. Burkina Faso's elite airborne troops are not born, they are forged. And SATAP, nestled in the heart of Bobo Dioulasso, is where that forging begins. This is not a base. It is not a barracks. It is a crucible, where skin breaks, spirit fractures, and something harder is born. Why Bobo Dioulasso? Why here? Because this city, far from the chaos of the northern front lines, is both shield and spear. Shield, because it offers safety for uninterrupted training. Spear, because its location allows swift deployment in all directions, north to the Sahel, east to Tapoa, west to Mali, south to protect the nation's arteries. And here, in the humid heat of the south, a new kind of soldier is shaped. At SATAP, pain is not punishment. It is preparation. Recruits arrive eager. They leave, transformed. They run for miles carrying packs heavier than logic. They sleep 2 hours, then crawl through mud, blindfolded. Guided only by instinct and trust. They learn to make fire from twigs and keep it alive in the rain. They jump in darkness, with no moon, no landmarks, no backup. Some vomit midair. Others land in thorn bushes. All rise again. Because at SATAP, failure is not failure, it is information. The drills are brutal. Digging defensive trenches under noon sun. Evading simulated ambushes with real gunfire sounds. Surviving 48 hours with no food, only teamwork. And yet, no one quits. Why? Because these recruits are not fighting for pay. They are fighting for places they can name, for villages they were born in. For schools they once ran through barefoot. Some are sons of displaced farmers. Others are daughters of widowed mothers. They carry more than weapons. They carry memory. And then comes the leap. Parachute training is not glamorous. It is terrifying. The first jump is always chaos. Wind howls. Knees shake. The plane's belly opens like a trapdoor. But in that moment, when boots leave steel floor and hang over the void, something ancient awakens. A promise. I will not let my people die waiting. They descend not just as soldiers, but as shields, as vengeance, as prayers in human form. The training doesn't end in the air. Once they hit ground, the second war begins. Navigation without GPS, field surgery with scrap tools. Negotiating safe passage with village elders in native dialects. Radio repair in the rain. surviving alone for 3 days with one matchstick and a knife. These are not just paratroopers. These are hybrid warriors. Engineers, diplomats, healers, and yes, killers when needed. And they are women too. Yes, SATAP trains female airborne fighters. And they do not ask for softer paths. They carry the same weight. They face the same mud. And when they jump, they land with the same thunder. These women don't shatter ceilings. They kick through the stratosphere. The instructors. Not generals from abroad. They are veterans of real ambushes, of failed operations, of blood-stained roads. They teach not from books, but from scars. And what they teach is not just how to fight, but how to feel, to love a land enough to suffer for it. SATAP is a vow. A sacred space where discipline becomes devotion. Where screaming turns into silence. Where falling becomes flight. And when a new class graduates, they do not celebrate. They do not post on social media. They stand still, in dust and heat. Heads raised, fists clenched. They know that the first time the nation hears of them will be when they land in the middle of a burning village and push the enemy back into the shadows. But what makes SATAP truly different is not just its brutality. It is its philosophy. Recruits are not only asked how to kill. They are asked, why would you die for a place you cannot name? They study maps, not just for tactics, but to memorize the names of villages, rivers, clans, and dialects. Before a parachute is ever packed, a soldier must know what they are protecting. They sit with griots, storytellers, who recount the epics of old warriors. They learn songs sung by elders who resisted colonization. They read the letters of fallen soldiers, not just orders, but last words to mothers. This is no longer mere combat readiness. It is cultural anchoring. It is the embedding of military purpose in the soil of identity. And so, when they descend from the sky, they descend not as strangers, but as sons and daughters returning home with steel wings. They are the sky's answer to the land's cry. And when they land, it is not just a military maneuver. It is a reunion. It is remembrance. It is resolve. If this story connects to something deeper inside you, share it. Pass it on. Let the world know, Africa does not only remember its pain. It learns. It adapts. And it rises. They do not wear uniforms. They do not march. They do not conquer cities. They vanish. The enemy Burkina Faso faces is not an army in the traditional sense. It is an idea armed with rifles, a shadow dressed in fear. Groups like JNIM and ISIS-GS do not follow borders. They do not build capitals. They burn schools. They poison wells. They slit throats in the night and vanish into the bush by morning. This is asymmetric warfare, where chaos is not a byproduct. It is the objective. They strike villages, health clinics, water towers, then melt away. And when conventional forces arrive, days too late, they find only ashes. Burkina Faso's army, trained in outdated doctrines, was slow, linear, predictable. Convoys moved on roads that were mined. Outposts were vulnerable, unreinforced. Commanders planned with maps. But the enemy fought with whispers. Villagers stopped reporting threats, not because they supported terror, but because the state arrived with delays, and the jihadists came back with rage. This created a vacuum, not just of security, but of belief. What good is a flag if it cannot protect your child? What good is a state that bleeds only after the wound has dried? It was in this despair that a new doctrine emerged, not from textbooks, but from necessity. Paratroopers. Not to hold ground, but to arrive when it matters. Not to patrol, but to intercept. Not to wait for signs, but to drop into silence and force it to speak. Speed became the new sovereignty. And with it, a new kind of deterrence, presence without warning. They trained to fly over impassable terrain. They practiced jumping in zones with no coordinates, only pain and dust. Villagers who once gave up hope now began to say, "We do not need to flee. The sky is watching." In July 2025, a test came. A series of coordinated attacks threatened villages in Tapoa instead of waiting for reports to crawl through bureaucracy. A new unit, Operation Swift Response, was greenlit within hours. 3 planes. 1 hour of briefing. No detailed maps. Only a message. You have 15 minutes to reach, repel, recover. They jumped in darkness. Landed on roofs, in courtyards, in chaos. And for the first time, the enemy ran before they could strike. What changed was not just strategy. It was psychology. The paratroopers began to be seen not as elite soldiers, but as myths. Children called them the storm that falls. Villagers left signs in fields, land here. We are ready. The enemy adjusted too. They abandoned large gatherings. They lost confidence in secrecy. Some commanders confessed, "We fear the wind." And that is the power of unpredictability. A force that answers terror not with escalation, but with precision and poetry. But make no mistake, this is still war. Paratroopers die. Sometimes before they land. They are light infantry, vulnerable if stranded. And the enemy adapts fast. They plant traps. They poison water. They disguise as civilians. This is why training at SATAP is ruthless. Because once in the field, there is no second chance. They must be medics, mechanics, diplomats, linguists, survivors, and above all, beacons. The doctrine of airborne response is not perfect. But it is ours. Crafted in African sand, shaped by African sweat, and proven with African blood. It is not a copy. It is not imported. It was not downloaded from NATO's hard drive. It was invented on the run, by a people who refused to die waiting. They turned the sky into a strategy. They turned soldiers into signals. They turned fear into tempo. And now, every village that hears a rumble in the air knows. We are not forgotten. And so, Burkina Faso rewrote the rules, not because it wanted to, but because it had to. Because no general from abroad would ever arrive fast enough. Because no satellite image can capture a scream in a hut. Because sovereignty is not in speeches, it is in action. And action, for the first time, now wears a parachute. If this story resonates, write your thoughts below. If you believe Africa's strength lies in its own design, its own doctrine, like this video. Share it, and help this truth fly farther than bullets ever could. When the world turned its back on the Sahel turned inward, and rose. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, 3 nations battered by coups, sanctions, and terror, chose not to collapse. They chose alliance. The AES, Alliance of Sahel States, was born not from treaties but from trenches. It was not discussed in Geneva. It was carved into red dirt by blood and urgency. And at the heart of this alliance, paratroopers. Burkina Faso's airborne doctrine became more than a military strategy. It became a blueprint for regional rebirth. Mali sent observers to SATAP. Then it sent recruits. Niger offered its desert for joint maneuvers. Burkina sent its instructors north, to teach not theory, but survival. Soon, a new idea emerged. What if the Sahel didn't just defend together, but struck together? The AES Rapid Response Corps was formed, an integrated unit trained across borders. They trained in silence, jumped in formation, ate the same bitter porridge. Different flags, same mission. And for the first time, the Sahel didn't wait for foreign peacekeepers. It created its own. The first joint mission came in August 2025. A cross-border cell of militants moved between Burkina and Niger. The AES Command Center authorized Operation Falcon Veil. 3 nations. 1 night. Paratroopers dropped at 3 points, Gorum, Tillabéri, and the Tapoa forest edge. It was synchronized shock. 1 team secured hostages. Another dismantled weapons caches. A third uncovered foreign satellite gear. The message was clear. We are no longer 3 wounded lions. We are 1 winged hunter. What followed wasn't just tactical success, it was emotional. Villagers in border zones who once feared being abandoned began to speak of unity. Children in Dori and Dasso shouted the same names of fallen heroes. And when a pilot from Niger crash-landed near Kaya, it was a Burkinabe team that pulled him from the wreck. He said only one thing. I thought I had died. Then I saw the red star on their shoulder. And I knew. My family had come. But this alliance is not without enemies. There are those who fear a strong Sahel. Those who profit from fractured borders. Those who send weapons, then denounce war. They whispered that AES was just a slogan. That it would implode. And yet, each operation proved the opposite. The AES didn't just copy Western structures. It evolved beyond them. No rigid hierarchies. No slow approvals. No debates on foreign soil. The AES moved like breath, swift, instinctual. Collective. Burkina Faso's paratroopers became instructors, ambassadors, and symbols. In Niamey, schoolchildren drew pictures of soldiers with wings. In Bamako, women embroidered patches with the AES logo, worn by those who leap for their people. And in Ouagadougou, a monument was unveiled. A statue of 3 paratroopers, arms locked mid-jump. Beneath it, an inscription. Together, we do not fall. These symbols matter. In a world flooded with propaganda and doubt, images of solidarity are acts of resistance. They tell every child in the Sahel, you are not forgotten. They tell the world, we are not fragments. We are formation. AES is not just a military pact. It is an education of the will. It teaches that power is not borrowed, it is built. That dignity is not negotiated, it is defended. That sovereignty is not a flag, it is a force. This alliance is imperfect. Friction exists. But friction is not failure. It is how fires are born. And if the world continues to doubt, let them watch. Because the next time an enemy crosses a border, it will not meet silence. It will meet a sky filled with wings. If you believe unity is more than a speech, if you believe Africa deserves its own shield, comment your thoughts. And if your heart beats faster hearing this story, hit like. Subscribe. Let the winds carry this alliance further than fear ever could. Not all who fall from the sky carry rifles. Some carry doubts. Some carry ghosts. For every operation launched, for every rescue celebrated, there are losses never reported. There are names erased before they are known. Bodies retrieved quietly at dawn. Flags folded before anyone waved them. Because in the sky, there is no mercy. No place to hide from wind, or bullets, or betrayal. Some parachutes never open. Some radios go silent forever. Some mothers wait, not knowing they're already widows. What no one speaks of, what the speeches omit, is the fracture beneath the steel. There are whispers within the ranks. Of missed airdrops. Of intel that was wrong. Of allies who were late to arrive. Of politics interfering with flight paths. Yes, even alliances bleed. AES, though young and bold, is not immune to the virus of distrust. Some commanders question. Will they come for us, if we fall behind enemy lines? Others wonder if the sky can truly unite what the soil still divides. Because unity is easy in parades. But in the dead air before a midnight jump, it is faith that must carry you. And sometimes, faith trembles. Some paratroopers look down from the ramp, not just seeing terrain, but asking, am I alone in this silence? Then there are the foreign eyes, watching. Drones without flags hover over training grounds. News reports twist victory into provocation. Whispers of mercenaries. Accusations of arms from the east. Some claim the paratroopers are not symbols, but puppets. That they answer not to Ouagadougou, but to Moscow. But let this be clear. These wings were not clipped from foreign manuals. They were carved from necessity. From hunger. From despair. From the cry of villages forgotten. The sky did not give them wings. The ground did. Still, the burdens grow. Each village liberated leads to 3 more attacked. Each success demands another. Each rescue raises expectations and grief. And soldiers, however strong, are not machines. Some cannot sleep. Others drink silence into numbness. Some send voice messages to children they may never see again. A few never return, not to base, not to themselves. Behind every hero's welcome is a quiet burial. Behind every ceremony, a widow. Behind every medal, an ache that never leaves. So the question lingers. Is this the future we dreamed of? Is airborne glory worth the shadows it casts? Is sovereignty still ours, if it costs us our sons? Or are we building statues with our grief? What happens when the flags fade, but the silence remains? But perhaps, this is the cost of awakening. Perhaps every revolution must walk through fire. Perhaps every alliance must be tested, not in peace, but in storms. And perhaps, most painfully of all, to fly free, we must first fall together. So let us not flinch from the truth. Let us name the dead. Let us confess the cracks. Let us mourn what was lost, and still protect what remains. And still, let us leap. If this truth stirs something deeper in you, write it. Do not let silence be your response. Like. Comment. Subscribe. Not for numbers, but for memory. For those who fell unseen. For those who still jump, with ghosts in their shadow. Ibrahim Traoré once said, "We do not inherit sovereignty. We forge it, jump by jump, breath by breath. From the skies of Tapoa to the sands of Tillabéri, from silence to song." Burkina Faso's paratroopers have taught us one lesson. That freedom is not gifted. It is seized, by those who fall with purpose. They fall with memory. With names etched into boots. With promises whispered to children they might not see again. And still, they leap. They leap into chaos. Into betrayal. Into fire. They leap because they know the alternative is worse. Because if we do not leap, we lie still. And stillness has never built nations. So here is our vow. To those who fell unseen, we see you. To those who jump tomorrow, we stand with you. To those who watch this story, you are now part of it. If the sky of Africa deserves its own wings, give this story your voice. Like. Comment. Subscribe. Let them know, we do not fall. We rise.